In today's episode, we're continuing our conversation with Erica. So if you haven't checked out episode 1 with Erica, please check that out and then come on back for episode 2 with Erica Reid-Dixon.
At InitiativeOne, we're igniting a leadership revolution by helping organizations eliminate the drama, improve decision-making, and win as a team. Join Dr. Fred Johnson on the Leadership Initiative podcast as we uncover insights to maximize your impact and transform your life.
All right, fun stuff. So talk to us about dance.
Yeah.
So this is the awesome part about having you on the podcast. You and Joelle are amazing, and you have a long history of dancing. And most recently at our conference actually led a salsa dancing class. So tell us, how does that fit into this Erica Reid-Dixon commanding officer?
Yeah, so I think that before I was, Commander Erica Reid-Dixon, commanding officer, all of that, I was just Erica Reid-Dixon. And I have always loved to dance. And it's something that has always brought me joy, and it's something that humbles me. And in addition to humbling me, it gets me into my feminine energy. And when you are in the military, which is a very male-dominated environment, you can get very comfortable being in what they would call masculine energy, right? You're decisive, you're doing things, you're always leaning forward, which is good. Those are good things. Yeah. But you also want to balance that, right? And everybody has feminine, masculine energy, right? So for me, dance is a place where I don't know what's going to come next, right? I'm not in charge. I can't pick every single song. I don't know whether someone is going to be one kind of lead or another, right? And so it's something that really keeps me humble. It keeps me always stretching, doing something different. I do all different kinds of dance. Joelle and we specialize in Cuban salsa, which we love, and it actually lends itself to a lot of leadership concepts because it's a team dance. But
it was great. It was great to learn.
Super fun. Yeah. But it's also just about like getting into your body more instead of your head, which, as you already mentioned, can be so easy to stay up here.
Yes.
And when our head wants our body to do something and that connection is like not happening, it can get frustrating. But it's humbling. And you realize, okay, there's always something for me to learn. There's always something for me to grow. I don't always have to be in charge. I lead in dance. I follow in dance. And it gives me balance. So I've done it everywhere I've ever been stationed, different styles. I did hula dancing when I was in Japan. I did salsa dancing in Japan. I've done ballet. I mean, I'm just like, I don't know what that is. Let's try that, So, it's good to just keep that body guessing because it keeps your brain guessing, which is always good.
That's awesome. So what's next for you? What's next for you, knowing that this was a stop in your career, in your life, and we're so honored to have you a part of this community for the period of time that you were here. What's next?
Yeah, we're still figuring it out. I'm in the process, though, of having those conversations about what's next for me. So I won't be in command wherever I go next. And so that's kind of the interesting thing about the Navy is you oscillate between being at the top of the food chain to not, right? And so as I go from being the CO, where I have this very distinct sphere of influence where I don't have to consult on everything, to now being a part of somebody's team again. So how do I bring what I've learned as a CO, but then also be ready to be under someone again, right? And be part of the team and understand a different mission in the Navy and a different part of the Navy. But then always have in my heart, I've done that before. Right. So I have the confidence to be able to speak from that place of experience while not feeling like I need to be that person all the time. Right. That doesn't change my value.
Right. Exactly. I was just going to say that your value comes from within. That's, the I am enough part of what we teach. And people don't always recognize that inherent value that exists no matter what position you're in.
Yeah.
And I love your recommendation before, just in terms of, dive in. Don't be afraid to take leadership when you can. Not from the standpoint of a position or a title, but leadership is needed in so many places in our world and in our communities and in the work that we do every day. So
Yeah.
I love that recommendation.
And I'll say sometimes you'll never feel ready. You just
Isn't that
won't
true?
feel ready. I was, as soon as I got to Green Bay, I was very much in my head, like, okay, I got to find a place to live. I got to do this. I got to get my uniform ready to go. But there were moments where I had a severe crisis of ability before I took command. And I was like, am I really ready? Can I really do this? What if I mess it up? What if like all the sailors hate me? What if I get fired? Right? I thought those things. And fortunately, I have people in my life that know my heart. They know the path that I've taken to get to this point, and they knew what I was capable of. And so they spoke life over me and they encouraged me. And I was going to do it anyway. Don't get me wrong. I was going to have to do it. There was no turning it down. But it didn't mean that I wasn't scared.
Yeah.
And there are still moments when I have to make a decision where I'm like, am I doing this wrong? But I just have to rely on the preparation and the things that have come before and just say, I'm going to do this the best that I can, no matter what.
Yeah.
Right. And the things that I have learned in my career are different than the things that you have learned in your career. But while I'm in this position, I make those decisions based on what I know and what I've experienced, and with that concept of doing the best that I can. And if I do that every time, for the most part, it's going to be good, right? And so, yeah, I encourage people, just take the leap, because you'll learn regardless.
Yeah. You're so inspirational. It's like, I just want to run through a wall right now with you. Like, I want to like get alongside of you and like, let's do this, Erica.
That's the energy we need. Yes.
Let's do this. Awesome. So Erica, as we, head into our last few minutes here, why don't we kind of pivot to, you talked about that voice, those voices as you take on key roles, and the fear sometimes that creeps in that as a leader, you really have to search. You have to do a lot of searching for. Why don't you describe to me some of the, whether it's patterns of situations that you've been in or trials that you've been through. What's been your experience as a leader navigating through that and really helping others, recommendations for others in terms of how to go through that journey?
Yeah. So I think that we all face different moments in our career where we have to find the flow point between what we think it's supposed to look like and the ideal scenario for our organization, and then when it's not, right? And how do we find that linkage between the two? How do we become part of trying to make it what we thought it was going to be, right? And, I was a junior officer once, fresh out of the academy. I was excited. I was like, leadership, let's do this. 30 days after I graduated, I've got an entire division of sailors looking at me. And there were several moments when I was a brand new officer where I was like, is this really happening? Is this how people are? I am so confused, right?
Yes.
Because that idealism was there. And we'd like to think that everything's going to fall into place and everything's going to be the way it's supposed to be, right? But how do things become the way that they're supposed to be? Because people actually propel that to happen. And so, I had a moment very early in my career where I didn't, and I backed down, right? And I thought I was the crazy one. And I wasn't strong enough, and I wasn't grounded enough. And I shrunk back from the conflict when I knew something was wrong. And I didn't have the support of my upper chain of command either. And so I kind of was just like, well, I guess this is the way things are. And I guess that's that. This thing that I thought the Navy was, that I thought being a professional was, that I thought being a leader was, it's just not really a thing, right? And that's okay. I'll just kind of get by, do my thing, and keep it moving.
All disillusioned.
All disillusion. Can you imagine?
That's what I'm thinking. All of your positive energy that you always give off, and you being disillusioned.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that work itself out in the journey?
Yeah. So what I will say is that probably 6 months after that, I got a different leader. And the same thing happened again. And he called me on it and said, why didn't you correct that? Why didn't you tell me that it needed to be corrected? And I said, well, that's just not what we do here, apparently, right? The last time I did that, I got my head chewed off, right? And he was more senior to me, and he changed the tone of his voice. And he said, that should have never happened. You were right. And I'm sorry. But we're going to fix this together now, right? And I actually felt that support, and I realized, oh, he is that person that actually is making this organization the way that it's supposed to be, right? And at that point, I trusted him, and we fixed it, right? And at that moment, I was strengthened because I realized, like, what's the difference between him and the other leader that I had is that choice. That moment where you can choose to step into the right thing, or you can just go with it, right? And so ever since then, when that moment comes up, and they have come up,
yes,
there is that moment where I say to myself, no, it isn't supposed to be that way. And it will be the wrong way if I don't do it the right way, right? And I need to be that person that helps us get a step further in the direction of the right way. But I had to learn what it felt like to be in the wrong way and feel that like defeated mindset, and then see the power of what a leader can really do. When all he did was say, that was wrong. You weren't crazy, right? Now let's go fix it. I mean, if you could just get one other person to say that, man, you can be unstoppable.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about the ability, I mean, the vulnerability, the transparency that requires to be able to step in and do that is an experienced leader, knowing that we've got to continuously learn, we've got to fail forward, we've got to lean into conflict. You're finding your voice in that moment is another part of leadership, right? And in organizations, it's easy to give power to that commanding or whoever that leader is that kind of dampens you down or I think about what you did at the conference, the fire. When they dampen your fire and you allow them to dampen your fire. And, you know, people have to remember that they have their own fire, and they, you know, not from a clashing perspective, but how do we resolve this together? And you're talking about collaboration. It's the highest level of work that we can do in our organizations to help our organizations get better. And so when we can do that, we do elevate the standard. We do help to get it to the place that you see as possible. And that requires best version of ourselves, which is what you're describing in those trials you kept stepping into. And you had a leader who was willing to receive it.
Yeah. There was actually that first, I think it's the first lesson in the program, and it talks about inspiring people to a higher degree of integrity.
Yes.
That is what he did for me.
Yes. That's amazing.
He inspired me that was possible in this organization. Like, you can operate in integrity. Like, these are the values, these are the things we say that we do, this is a standard, and we can actually have integrity with that. And look at me do it. Like, I'm doing it now with you, right? And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, I'm inspired again. Whereas before, it was like, oh, you're trying to have integrity, but that's too much work, so we're all just going with the wrong thing, right? And so when I saw that in him, now I'm like, oh, I need to make sure I'm always inspiring people to lean into integrity, to lean into the right thing to do, because I'm not going to be able to see what they're doing all the time. He didn't know that I had like given up until that moment happened.
Well,
right?
in business, that's the disengagement that you see happen sometimes, that people don't even realize they've disengaged.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's just such an important lesson overall, whether you're the leader or whether you're the follower or in a different hierarchy in the organization, which is why, again, it goes back to your first comments about if the opportunity presents itself to lead, lean in, do it. You'll never fully be prepared sometimes, and that's okay. It'll be messy sometimes. But more often than not, we can navigate through and build trust.
Yeah. Somebody's got to spark it.
Yeah.
And in that moment, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't me when I was that junior officer. I couldn't spark it. He sparked it.
Yeah.
From then on, I'm like, oh, I can.
Because you knew what it felt like.
I can spark it too.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to spark, and I'm going to try to catch good fire everywhere that I am, right?
Love that.
Not be destructive, but I can also be the spark.
Any other learnings from trials and tribulations as you've grown, as you've developed, as you've become this amazing leader?
Yeah, I think, I won't go too far into the details, but, in the Navy, we have a lot of requirements as far as like our medical readiness. And I've certainly had my like health challenges, as many of us have. And at the time, I think I was somebody that would have questioned someone else, like, oh, you're not at work because you're sick. What? But those experiences really caused me to slow down and really remember like how important it is for people to know their health and to be able to advocate for that and understand it. And even just since I've been in command, it's been astonishing how many times that has been a connection point for me and sailors, where I'm able to take something that was very painful in my life and use it for good, right? And say, well, I still don't know why this happened to me, but I really hope it can help you, right? And we just have an honest conversation about it. And there's been times where, sailors are like, wow, I feel like I learned so much more in this conversation than I have in talking with doctors and things like that, because I'm understanding that I'm empowered in this moment to really ask the questions and really get what I need as far as my healthcare, So, so that has been huge for me, for sure. Just thinking critically about the different things that people have going on in their lives and how they're divvying up their time in ways that really support the organization. There's going to be a difference in the way that somebody shows up when they have kids that are young versus somebody that is, single and doesn't have any kids. But how do you take care of both of those people? How do you see what they're contributing to the team? And how do you also make sure that it's fair? Like I've been the single person who everybody expects to work on the holidays, right? And so it's like, how do we make sure that's not happening? How do we make sure we value, the person that wants to go on vacation just to dance?
Yeah.
Right? That was me.
Yeah.
I went to Brazil for an entire month, to dance.
Amazing.
And that could have been seen as a bad thing, right? But if I would have said, oh, I'm taking a month off to take my kids to Disneyland, it would have been a different perception potentially. So I was fortunate to have a leader that valued what I needed to recharge. And so I really tried to be mindful of that when it comes to my team. Is like, what is it that you need? Like, what is going to give you life so that you come back and you feel taken care of, you feel rested, and like you can do what we need you to do, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be different for every person. So I don't want to project onto what it is that I think they need or deserve just because of where they are in their lives.
Yeah, that's that empathy part of just, it's more than empathy for you. I think of you go into conversations with so little bias and you go into them with curiosity and, you know, just not moving quickly to judge. Sometimes people move too quickly to judgment or conclusion. And I've never seen you do that in the time. And you're just always so open to listening.
Yeah.
And such important skills from a leadership standpoint. So
Thank you.
it's been awesome to have you. And I'm so excited for your next journey and your next chapter. And we're just, thank you for your service to our country. You are an amazing leader, and we so are grateful to have you.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Awesome. That's awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today. And if you enjoyed this, you definitely want to check out our monthly think tanks. You can find them at InitiativeOne.com.